The word tobacco can invoke a number of thoughts or emotions in today's society. We likely all have some sort of connection to tobacco, whether that be personal use, friend or family member who used it, or potentially even a friend or family member who may have gotten sick from the use of tobacco. About 2 years ago, I found a wild coyote tobacco plant growing in my yard. And with a fresh new interest in this plant I had just discovered, as well as background interest in cultural and mythological studies, I decided to do some extensive research into both the morphology as well as the cultural background to coyote tobacco, along with the help of some of my neighbors on the nearby Kuya reservation. In traditional Kuyan culture, coyote tobacco is far more than just a plant. It's a sacred plant embedded into the mythology, ceremonial traditions, and medical healing practices for the Kuya. The main points of discussion today are going to be the mythological origins of coyote tobacco, the ceremonial purposes, as well as medicinal purposes in Kuyan culture. Now we're going to move forward into my first point of discussion, the mythological meanings behind coyote tobacco. Our first point today is going to be mythological meanings, mythological origin of coyote tobacco. In the 1960 book, which was later republished in 1969 by the Kuya-owned Malky Museum Press, Harry C. James, a renowned researcher of several indigenous tribes of the American Southwest, introduced us to the Kuya legend behind coyote tobacco. Thereupon, Mukat drew forth from his heart a black pipe. Tamaoet followed his example and reached into his own heart, but the pipe that he drew forth from it was white. Then each once again reached into his heart. From his heart, Mukat drew forth black tobacco, but the tobacco Tamaoet drew forth was white. Mukat and Tamaoet are twin creators in the Kuyan legend, and this story is part of the original creation myth for the Kuya. Sometime later, through a series of unrelated events, Mukat actually falls out of favor with his subjects. This series of events leads to his untimely death. But following his death and following the ceremony that took place following his death, new plants were discovered in the pit that Mukat was burned. Since nobody knew what these plants were, there was a shaman that traveled into the afterlife to ask Mukat about the plants, to which he responded that this plant was tobacco, and it was a plant that could be used by older people to help ease pain. Now that we've discussed some of the mythological origins behind coyote tobacco, I'm going to move forward into some of the ceremonial purposes behind the plant. So our second point of discussion today is going to be ceremonial usages for coyote tobacco. In the 1972 book, which is titled Tamalpak, Kuya Indian Knowledge and Usages of Plants, Lao John Bean, then a professor of anthropology at the California State University, and Catherine Siva Sabel, a member of the Tribal Council of Los Coyotes Reservation, as well as one of the founding members of the Malky Museum, stated simply, tobacco is a sacred plant of the Kuya. In Kuya language, coyote tobacco is translated as Piva Izel, the plant of coyote, or coyote, the ceremonial assistant of the Kuya. The primary ceremony in which coyote tobacco is used is the ceremony of the dead, which is a ceremony that traces its origin back to the original ceremony for Mukat at the time of his death. So during the ceremony of the dead, visiting guests are provided a sack of tobacco on their arrival by the hosts. Anytime they enter a ceremonial house or during the ceremony, they're to blow smoke in all four directions, as was something that was originally guided to them by Mukat. Shaman would also use coyote tobacco as a form or as a way to help them gain spiritual enlightenment. This would also allow them in fighting off evil spirits, as well as helping them to predict any future challenges or diseases for the tribe. Now that we've discussed ceremonial usages of coyote tobacco, I'm going to move on to some of the medicinal uses as well. So the third point of discussion today is going to be medicinal purposes for coyote tobacco. So in the 1960 book, again, later republished in 1969 by the Mulkey Museum Press, Harry C. James stated that Mooquette's spirit introduced the plant to his people by stating, tobacco is for old people to smoke for the comfort that it will give them. So this was one intended purpose that Mooquette had for his people. But there are other medicinal purposes with the plant as well. One thing that it could be used for is being applied as a wrap to any open wounds, any cuts, sprains, things of that nature. Also, we could also use the leaves to help reduce swelling from fresh wounds, or let's say, for example, we have swollen lymph nodes. That it could be used in that purpose as well. The plant could also be burnt in bathhouses, and the steam that was produced from that would be used to help clear out blocked airways. There's also a water solution that could be used to help induce vomiting, and it could be even be used in a very weak tea form in order to help reduce odors. So, as we discussed on the points of discussion today, it's important to recognize that coyote tobacco was more than just a plant or the product that we recognize it as today. The main points of discussion today were the mythological origins behind coyote tobacco, its ceremonial uses, as well as the medicinal purposes of coyote tobacco by the Kauaian people. In traditional Kauaian culture, coyote tobacco is more than just a plant. It's a sacred plant embedded in legend, ceremonial traditions, as well as medicinal healing practices of the Kauai. In the future, when you think about tobacco, do not just think about the modern context or usages that it has, but think back in the traditional meanings and purposes which it has for various indigenous communities, including the Kauai and other tribes across the American Southwest. Thank you.